Hi, horror hounds. Welcome to an episode of This Just In. I like to talk about movies, mainly horror movies, and today we're going to be talking about Child's Play, the tale of a 6-year-old boy and his best friend. They end up watching some TV together, they take a train ride, and they even play a little bit of baseball. This movie came out on November 9th, 1988, which holds a special place in my heart because that's actually the day I was born. That might be why Chucky and I are so close. I love the little guy. He brought me into horror a long time ago. Not the first horror movie I ever watched, but it was still one of the early ones I did. And I had that awesome little My Buddy doll when I was a kid. You know, the Child's Play knockoff version. Yeah, that doll got the crap beat out of it a lot when I was a kid. Afraid he was going to try to kill me. Turns out he wasn't alive. I'm still here today. Alright, so getting into the movie, we all know what Child's Play is about. Charles Lee Ray, he's going to get shot when he's in a toy store, and he uses Voodoo to transfer his soul into a good guy doll. Andy's birthday, he's 6 years old, and all he wants for his birthday is a good guy doll. Sounds like a match made in heaven. But Andy's mom just doesn't have the money, so he doesn't get a doll. He gets clothes, every kid's favorite birthday present, and he does get a toy good guy hammer, you know, so he can build things with nothing else, because he doesn't get anything else for his birthday. Later that day when she's at work, she ends up being able to go out back and buy a doll from a homeless guy for $30. She thinks it's an amazing deal. Turns out that's the worst $30 she ever spent in her life. But she does bring the doll home to Andy, and he's super happy. He even opens it up, and Chucky blinks, and, "Hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?" Boy, everybody loves that first good guy line. Karen ends up having to go back to work, and Aunt Maggie stays to watch Andy. Aunt Maggie tells him that it's bedtime, and he says Chucky wants to stay up and watch the news. Aunt Maggie is not believing that Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news, so it's time for them to brush their teeth. And while he's brushing his teeth, the TV turns on. Aunt Maggie turns around. Who's sitting there watching TV? Chucky. So Chucky gets all excited, you know, watching TV. Now Aunt Maggie gets angry. She grabs Chucky and carries him off to bed by one arm, bouncing him, yanking him. Probably not something you want to do to a killer doll. You get to see that awesome POV shot. The little feet running through the hallway. Hammer gets picked up by the little tiny hand, and he throws it at her head. Smashes her in the face, and she falls out the window 5 stories. Crashes onto a vehicle. The police show up, and all they can tell is that there's footprints and flour on the counter. So they see the footprints kind of match Andy's shoes, but he doesn't have any flour on his feet. And he tells them, "Oh, I know, Chucky had those same shoes. It had to be Chucky." And everybody kind of scoffs and laughs at him. You know, yeah, your doll killed somebody. Children in their imaginations. We all know everybody trusts a little child in a horror movie. The next day, Andy goes off to school, and Chucky whispers in his ear, and you see Andy leave school. Because apparently at his school, when a 6-year-old doesn't show up for class, nobody contacts the parents at all. They just are happy that's one less kid to fucking deal with. They end up taking the L train and going to Eddie Caputo's house, Charles Lee Ray's old partner. They go inside the house, Chucky does, and he opens up the stove, turns on the gas, and leaves it wide open so it's starting to fill the house. He then wakes up Eddie, scaring him a little bit and doing his nice, awesome cackle. Eddie ends up shooting his gun and blows up the entire house. So the police are now got Andy at the station, and when Karen shows up, because this is 2 deaths recently and 1 kid seems to be always around, they assume he probably has something to do with it, so they're going to send him off to a mental hospital for a little psychiatric evaluation. When she gets home with Chucky, she decides she's going to break his box down, and being the environmentally friendly mom that she is, and when she takes the box over and she bumps it into the wall, the batteries fall out. So then she looks at Chucky and decides she probably should better check to see if he has batteries, or has he really been talking this entire time without any batteries. So she flips him over on his stomach, opens up his back, and surprise! There's no batteries. And then his head spins around. He's like, "Hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?" She screams and she drops him. She ends up picking him up to see if he's alive, what just happened. He's laying there lifeless. And she says, "Talk to me, damn it. Talk to me, damn it." And she turns on the wood stove. She says, "Talk to me, damn it, or I'm going to throw you into the fire." And you see the best part in the entire movie. Animated Chucky comes to life. And he looks at her and he says, "You stupid bitch, you filthy slut. I'll teach you to fuck with me." And he ends up biting her in the arm. And she throws him off and he ends up running at her to scare her, and then he runs away. Karen goes to see Detective Mike Norris and tell him, guess what? Andy's not full of shit. The doll is alive. Detective Norris doesn't believe. She decides she's going to go find the peddler who sold her the doll, because maybe he has some answers. And Detective Norris tells her not to go to that part of town. It's a bad part of town, but she doesn't listen. She doesn't care. She's got to prove her son's innocence. So she goes to the peddler. She goes to the peddler and she talks to him to see if she can get some answers, and he asks what he can get in return. And she says she has a little bit of money on her, and he says he doesn't want her money. He wants something else. And as he starts to kind of force himself upon her, Detective Norris shows up and stops that. He then beats the guy a little bit up to get the answers that he's looking for. Turns out the doll was taken from an abandoned toy store that blew up. Detective Norris remembers that's where he shot Charles Lee Ray, and Charles Lee Ray died that night. Well, you can tell Detective Norris is trying to put two and two together, but it's just not clicking. Or he's afraid it's clicking. He goes back to the precinct so he can do a little bit more deep research, dig up some stuff, and when he leaves, he gets in his car to go home. In his car, he gets greeted by Chucky! What else would happen? Chucky comes up behind him with a hose and starts strangling him. He then starts stabbing him in the back. And he's still not getting him, so then he goes and stabs him up through the bottom of the seat, right through the crotch. But he just misses it. Detective Norris was pretty excited about that, I'm guessing. He wasn't looking for a free vasectomy that day. Chucky ends up pushing on the gas pedal, ends up making him crash. He then plays around with Detective Norris to the point where he's slicing and dicing on the side of the car. When he comes at him, Detective Norris shoots him and he goes flying. Screams in a lot of pain and he doesn't understand it. He leaves. He then goes and finds John, the voodoo master who taught him everything he knows. He's got to have an answer. And he shows up. "Hey, what do you think?" And John kind of steps back. He's scared. He says, "Chucky, you're an abomination." He winds up not telling Chucky anything, to where Chucky then takes out his voodoo doll of John, breaks his arm and breaks his leg, and when he threatens to kill him, John tells him the only way to get out of that body is to put your soul into the first person you told your true self to. Chucky laughs because that's a 6-year-old boy. Chucky goes ahead and says the most disturbing line in the entire movie. He tells John, "I've got a date with a 6-year-old boy. And you've got a date with death." And stabs the doll right in the chest. Then you see the blood start pouring out of John. Karen and Detective Norris end up going to John's house, and right before John's going to die, they find out that he's going after the little boy. And the only way to kill Chucky is shooting him through the heart, or anything through the heart. Chucky's headed over to the mental hospital, and Andy can see him climbing the stairs, so Andy sets up a diversion with a pillow under a blanket. Chucky comes in, lifts the blanket. "Oh my God, where is Andy? He's been bamboozled." Andy winds up running away and hiding in another room, where the doctor comes in and sees him, and Chucky stabs the doctor in the back of the leg, and he ends up putting on the old electrical unit around his head. Zap, zap, zap. He turns that shit up to 11, and he fries the guy. Andy goes home after this. He decides that there's no place like home. He tapped his little red good guy shoes, and he made it there. He barricades the door shut, but Chucky wasn't coming in through the door. Chucky took the elevator all the way to the top. Even when an old lady Says somebody left their ugly doll here. You even get Chucky with a little "fuck you." So Andy's hiding in his bedroom closet. He's all prepared. Chucky's not gonna get me. Ho, ho, ho. Down the chimney comes Chucky. He does a little boot and kicks down the grate in front of the fireplace. He then is on search for Andy. Andy ends up getting scared and he's running around the house. And here's that scene of baseball I was telling you guys all about. You hear, "Batter up!" And boom! Chucky smashes him in the back of the head with a baseball bat. And he falls. And so begins the chant. Aduer Dembella. What a long chant. It is very long. You have to wait for the storm clouds to roll in. And as they are, Detective Norris sees it and he's like, "This happened when we were at the toy store. I think something's happening here." So they hurry and they run up to the room. And they're trying to get into the door, but they can't get in because Andy barricaded it in. Who knew? That little shit ruined his own life. They end up pounding down the door and stopping Chucky before he can get the power he begs of you. At this moment, they end up in a little bit of a scuffle. Detective Norris gets stabbed in the back of the leg. Karen winds up getting the upper hand on Chucky and throwing him into the fireplace. And she turns on the gas and she tells Andy to get the matches. So Andy gets a match and he's trying to strike it against the fireplace. And when he finally gets that flame, you see Chucky with a sad little face. "Andy, we're friends till the end, remember?" And then Andy finally gets to have a good line in this movie. He tells him, "This is the end, friend," and sets him on fire. So he's burning throughout the house, crawling around, trying to get away until he eventually dies. They go to check on Detective Norris, who's now somehow in Andy's mom's bedroom. Suspicious Detective Norris. Karen tells Andy to go get the first aid kit from the kitchen. Parenting 101. You're one great mom when you send your 6-year-old to go get the first aid kit where the doll just burned. And yes, you're assuming he's dead, but is that really what you want to send your 6-year-old back into? Guess so. So he gets that first aid kit and he turns around to go back and he looks and Chucky's gone. Chucky's not there. He says, "Mommy," but there's no answer. So then he screams, "Mommy," and he goes running and he gets tripped. And you see a charred up looking Chucky doll with the best knife in the entire series. Got a nice little design down the side of it and everything else, and that doll's just a walking right at him. Eventually he gets up and he runs in the bedroom and the doll goes kicking on the door. Can't get in. Goes around through the bathroom to get in through the other door. Karen blocks that door and closes it shut. He winds up stabbing her in the hand through the door. And he just keeps stabbing through the door. Inch by inch as she keeps backing up. He eventually gives up on trying to stab her through the door and he runs on the other side and they end up going back through the door and doing the loop-de-loop around the hallway, the bathroom, and the bedroom. And as Chucky comes down the hallway, she winds up firing the gun. She shoots off an arm, she shoots off a leg, and she shoots off his head. He falls to the ground. He's got to be dead this time. They end up running back into the bedroom to check on Detective Norris. Find out that he's okay. He's going to be all right. His partner comes in and tells his partner to call for backup. But whatever you do, don't touch the doll. Don't touch the doll. The guy goes back out in the other room, calls for backup, sees the doll in pieces, looks at the head, fried up Chucky with a little grin on his face. He picks up that head and he carries it in the bedroom and he tells him he doesn't understand why. He's afraid. Look, he's dead. Boom! Jump scare. Doll comes through the grate, choking him. Karen throws the doll off from him. He runs into the wall. The doll finally pulls himself up while the Chucky head is screaming, "Kill them! Kill them! Kill them all!" And what ends up happening, Detective Norris shoots him in the heart and you see blood splatter. The most blood in the entire movie. That's right, they saved their budget on a bleeding doll heart. Money well spent. It's a very epic scene in the movie, watching Chucky die. Andy is so scared that even when he looks back, it freezes and holds. Forever, he's going to be stuck in that position, just staring at that doll for the rest of his life. End credits. So the movie in general, I think it's a great movie. I've loved it since I was a kid. There's nothing wrong with it in my eyes. You can see some things that are bad. Andy is a bit whiny throughout the whole movie. You also get some scenes with the old Chuckster. You can tell it's a person in an outfit. As a kid, you couldn't tell. But as an adult, you can tell. And it doesn't age that well in that sense. But other than that, most of the stuff is pretty epic, if you ask me. Having the doll spin his head, screaming the lines. The transformation, it all looks really good still to this day for being made in 1988. The kills, there's a variety of them. They're not graphic or anything like that. Overall, I would give this movie about a 4.25 out of 5 stars. I think it's a great film. Everybody should see it if you haven't seen it by now. We're going to continue on with this series. The next video we're going to be doing will be for Child's Play 2. Plan on going through this entire series and the first season of Chucky before Chucky 2 comes out. So if you would, give me a like, hit that subscribe button, share this with all your friends, write something in the comments. We can have a conversation going back and forth. And until the next one, we'll see you later.